For those who are new or unfamiliar with my content, I would like to give a disclaimer. Slow Damage has an extremely self-destructive main character, and his nonchalant comments about his lack of concern for himself does trigger my nervous laughter. If you'd like to view my content that covers darker and triggering subjects like this one, please consume it responsibly and know that this content is not for minors. I want to emphasize that if you experience any of the severe symptoms that Towa does, I highly encourage that you seek professional help rather than view this playthrough. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Slow Damage, part 23. I promise this part won't be as long today. Well, no, I take it back. It'll probably be long. We're just gonna do our little thing, do our little jigs. So, last we left off, I went buck wild, and we uncovered quite a lot in this final chapter. Currently, Fujieda's law office has been blown up. Fujieda is not dead, but definitely being threatened. And Towa is going to run over to the office because he wants to go and take some things for himself, because Fujieda has kind of left him out in the cold now that Fujieda is in despair, finally knowing the fate of his sister. However, Towa, on the other hand, is now stuck in the plateau because he is only ever so close to memories returning to where he can weaponize them in any way. Oh, gosh. Yeah, poor Towa. Poor Towa is left in the dust, and Fujieda is running around buck wild. So, Fujieda thinks, you know, things are his fault, and, you know, he's in pain right now. We're gonna let him do what he wants, but in the meantime, we gotta help our boy Towa out, you know, so. Alright, kids. Let's make do! Ugh. Let's go. Ugh. Okay, come on, baby. Next, I headed to Fujieda Law Office. Naturally, since it was a crime scene, I couldn't waltz right into the building. A few cops were standing at the entrance, which cordoned off while a crowd of reporters and onlookers gathered nearby. About 4 stories up, the wall of the building had been burned black, with cracks in all the windows. I walked around to the back alley and checked the rear entrance. And after I scouted the place out, I went home. Where's Fujieda now? What was he doing? Chances are high that the Takasato Gumi now knew about that condo building where we took shelter from the rain. Generally speaking, wealthy people purposely rented multiple apartments at once in case of any danger. Perhaps Fujieda was one of them. There was still quite a bit of time before the sun set. I lit a cigarette and contemplated killing time in town somewhere before heading back to my apartment. Oh, free exploration. I've come! I've arrived! Okay. Alright, let's see. I feel like it. No business. Current location. Oh. Business. I wonder a little longer. Okay. Okay. So, let's do free exploration. So let's go. Okay, let's just go in a line then, as per usual.
Towa.
Yes, I was. Towa, were you out and about?
そうだ。
Yeah. You can't blame me for being out
No.
and about. I saw on the news that Fujieda-san's office got bombed. Yeah. They found a corpse too. Is Fujieda-san alive? Most likely. I hear the body wasn't his. I see, but someone wound up dead in his place. Oh, and I mentioned this before, but we're sending Hasegawa-san to a different hospital. Her condition's stable, this is just a precaution. Cool.
気をつけろよ。
Look, you really gotta be careful. I mean it.
Negative.
That would make sense, yeah. I'm sick of hearing this from you people. I'm not surprised, but an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. Might sound weird coming from a guy who's lived here all these years, but this sounds really gone to hell.
そうだな。
Someday I hope it can change for the better.
そうか。
That's not happening. Maybe not. Oh, that reminds me. Wasn't there a time you came all the way to the clinic but didn't come inside? You saw. I just happened to catch sight of you. Thought maybe you were avoiding me. Well, whatever. See you. Ooh, he caught. Caught a homie. Oh!
いや。そうだな。
I don't want anyone to lose their lives over this. Okay. Oh boy. Alright. To the Yanagawa Cafe! Oh gosh, everything is stressful, huh?
Dozo.
Oh, hi! Write this with you at the cash register, please. That would be 800 yen. 800 yen exactly. Thank you very much.
な。
Sagawa-san used to work here, right? Yes. You hear that she got shot? I'm aware of it, yes.
その。
Did you know Hasegawa, or? She was treated at my friend's clinic. I see. Keep it brief. Yeah?
ネガティブに。
It wasn't fatal.
おお。
Ah, good to hear. In that case, perhaps she'll be able to turn to work. Probably. Well then, that's a relief.
そうか。
Oh, thank goodness. Well, she's always been somewhat aloof. She's a very hard worker. So if she could return to the cafe, that would be very helpful for us.
そうか。
Gotcha. I sincerely apologize for holding you up. Please come by again soon.
ありがとうございました。
Okay.
いや。それは。ああ。
I see. Interesting. Okay. Next is Taku. Yeah. So I don't need to go here, but you know, I go everywhere, so. This is District East Main Street. Okay, so it is the second too. Okay. So, let's go anyway, because that's what I do. Okay. This is Hakuita Street in District D. Okay. Coal. Coal Street. I don't think there's anything here either, but... Oh, it's my bestie. You again. Yeah. I heard there was a bombing at Fujieda Law Office in District C. Apparently it caused a ton of damage. Several injured, one dead. What's weird is, only the law office floor was damaged. Clearly this is a work of a professional. As for the founding lawyer Fujieda, people say he's gifted, but there are a lot of nasty rumors about him. More than you'd expect. They say he takes cases most lawyers would refuse and that he'll do anything to win a case. Supposedly he's retained by the Takasato Gumi. Maybe he pissed off the wrong person. That's why his office went kaboom. These days, following the death of the leader, the Takasato Gumi has grown more and more afraid. Similar to the war that happened a while back. Hope history doesn't repeat itself. If the city shuts down more districts, it won't last much longer. Shinkoumi was originally built on a landfill cell, kind of a flimsy foundation. That's why the roads are all twisty, and why sinkholes keep happening. The place is falling apart. Especially District A. There's so many sinkholes, it's actively dangerous. I can't believe people go there to punch each other. Have I ever told you? Why I came to this town. Came to Shinkoumi on a mission. Refused to get left in the dust. Something like that. Wonder if anyone found my New Year's money. I'm sorry, Grandma. Oh, interesting. Into Weston. Okay. Hajima! I missed her. Oh, it's you. Okay. Should I leave or something?
Yeah.
No. You're always welcome to come here. Cool, I wanted to ask you something. What is it, boy?
No.
Have you ever heard of a business called Euphoria? Feel like I might have, but can't remember. What about it? Don't worry about it. Good grief. 5 minutes into the new year and there's already so much going on. Saw on the news that some place got bombed. Yeah. The grandkid's always wandering around town. They keep telling him to stay safe, but he's hopeless case, I tell ya. You have a grandson? I do. Walks around wearing baggy clothes and a headband like a big man, but on the inside he's just a kid. She is not talking about Inada. Wants my compassion. Let's play along indeed for the old lady.
Positive.
Hopefully he won't get into any trouble. Tell me about it. I'm worried sick about him. Came to visit for New Year, so I gave him some spending money. And he tells me he lost it on the street somewhere.
切れたよ。
I wasn't expecting it to just vanish into thin air. Oh my gosh, her grandson is not Inada. How on earth is this kid going to survive on his own?
それで
Gonna buy something or what? Let's see. This, and this? 250 yen.
これは
The change.
どうも。
Come back sometime. Oh, so she's... So Inada's her grandson. Okay. You
Yeah.
want something else? Okay.
そういえば。
Alright. Oh, I wonder if I'll run into Madarame in this route. I feel like, or at least like, I feel like we should, like, we'll hear mention of him more, like, because his lighter did show up. So, let's go. Lee! Lee?
え
Ah, Toa, you scared me. Oh hey, about Fujieda's office. Do you think he's alive? Supposedly the body they found wasn't his. Oh really? That's a relief. Honestly, why would anyone bomb the place? Well, you know, Ray.
ね
Were you headed somewhere?
別に
Nowhere specific. Well, stay away from the deathmatch area. You hear me? It's a real mess over there, even during the daytime. It's a
え
mess.
あのね
Yeah, so don't go there under any circumstances. Oh, I see. Vaguely. Okay, let's answer vaguely. For Ray.
ネガティブに
Yeah, I probably won't.
あ
What do you mean probably? Don't go there. End of story. I just feel so restless. I wish I could distract myself with something happy and fun. Maybe go to a restaurant with my friends and eat a bunch of good
あと
food.
は
I wish I just had one more chance. Is something wrong? Huh? No, I'm fine.
な
I saw you driving your motorcycle down Hagawita Street a while back. Oh, you did? Well, you know me, always riding my hog. It's so he has the debt, doesn't he?
どういうことだ
It was on Christmas Day, the same day you were too sick to go to the party. Well, I was feeling sick, but I also had something urgent come up, so I just couldn't make it. Anyway, I gotta go now. Alright. I'm so sad about it.
いや
Because it means Rei
何が
is doing the money match things, isn't he? Okay. Let's go. Oh. Yeah. Only pain.
あトワだ
おう
Oh, hey friends. Gosh. I have missed these all. Okay. Let's talk to the besties. Where's AG?
そうな
How should I know? Besides, think about it. He's probably the guy who bombed Mr. Lloyd's office.
誰
Right? There's a bomb. Usually AG's behind it. Granted, it was on Sakaki's orders, but still. I wonder if he made it out alive. Supposedly he did, but someone else died in his place. Oh yeah? Well, it was just meant as a threat anyway. Killing the lawyer would just be an added bonus. For sure! Did you... when you saw the news? Oh, I hate it. Yeah.
ネガティブにいや
Okay. Not really. Huh. Man, that lawyer dude was a real piece of work. So did you need something, Towa? Nah, you're busy with work right now. Technically, no, but we were asked to pitch in with something on the side.
それは
By who, Sakaki? Nope, someone even scarier. Like who?
いいね
Say, Towa, wanna go there together? Madarame? I'll pass. Figures. I knew you'd say that.
元の
Anyway, we gotta get going. See you around, Towa.
ほいじゃトワ
See you later. Okay. It's Madarame.
Yes.
Yeah, they're talking about Madarame. Okay. Finally said it. Okay, good. We have... I think we have everything, yeah? Okay. Okay. Ugh. Let's go home. Okay, and then let's save. Because I feel like we're about to hit something very important here. Back at my apartment, I sat down on the sofa without bothering to take up my coat off. AG said he'd make arrangements for me to get in around 2 a.m. As I listened to the non-stop news coverage of the bombing incident, I idled away my time by smoking a cigarette. Slow damage. Let's go, babies. 2 a.m. that night. I was once again standing outside the Fujieda law office building. Cops, reporters, and onlookers from earlier were nowhere to be seen, replaced with a few cars parked outside. Probably Takasato watchdogs. Taking care not to be seen, I slipped around to the back alley. Then I walked up to the rear entrance and twisted the handle. It opened up without incident. Perhaps I had AG to thank for that. I heard inside, and once I shut the door, I was fully engulfed in darkness. I pulled my phone out of my coat pocket and activated the flashlight function. With the floor illuminated, I made my way forward. As I progressed down the hall, I spotted a staircase on the right-hand side. I climbed the stairs to the 4th floor where the smell of char lingered. At the end of the short hallway was a door. Thankfully, it wasn't one of those high-tech, unpickable locks, so I let myself in. I passed by the restrooms and the office kitchenette, then stopped at the next door and twisted the handle. It wasn't locked, so I opened it easily. The burnt smell intensified. But I never would have guessed from the hallway just now how wrecked the inside of this room turned out to be. The bomb really did a number on this place. The ceiling was scorched black and the walls were cracked. Taking care not to trip over the debris on the floor, I walked around the room. After I finished a full lap around the floor, I stepped into what appeared to be Fujieda's private office. The desk had been knocked askew. On it I could see an engraved nameplate that read Fujieda Ryo. Trembling over the papers that carpeted the floor, I used my cell phone light to scan the room. I leafed through the documents, threatening to fall from the shelf, and rummaged through the desk drawers, but came up empty-handed. I was keeping an eye out for the plush toy that Fujieda took from me, but couldn't find that either. Right as I contemplated calling it a night, however, I spotted a familiar object peeking out from beneath the papers on the floor. It was a memo pad, and it looked a lot like the one I'd seen Fujieda carry. I picked it up and flipped through it. His notes were so condensed, they may as well have been written in Morse code. I started to close it, then noticed the photo tucked inside. It's her! An old yellowing photo of the missing girl smiling happily. Felt like I recognized her from somewhere. It's her. Out of nowhere, a crippling migraine exploded in my skull. I couldn't bear to stand. With a grunt, I hit my knees. My head throbbed in time with my heartbeat, stabbing me over and over until I broke out into a cold sweat. What was that? For a second, I thought I saw someone's smile flash up in my mind. Who was that? I don't remember. For the first time in several days, I heard the same voice in my head. Don't remember. Don't dig any deeper. Grimacing, I looked back at the photo. Is this his friend's sister? Sure, I'd seen her before. Yet I couldn't place where or when. I slid the photo back into the memo pad and stuffed it into my coat pocket. Clutching my temple, I slowly started walking. This was not the ideal place to pass out. Gritting my teeth as the migraine worsened, I headed down the stairs to the back entrance of the building. Once I finally made it outside, I carefully avoided detection and took a long detour back to the clinic. Back at my place, I collapsed face down on the sofa without even bothering to take my coat off. My headache was slowly fading, and my sweat-soaked clothes were now cold and unpleasant. I rolled over onto my back and closed my eye. The girl from the photo rose to the forefront of my mind. Who was she? I didn't have an answer, nor could I shake the urgent restlessness that plagued me. Slow damage. Ugh. Mercy. In the end, I didn't get a wink of sleep that night. As a result, I avoided the nightmares, but I still didn't feel great. Morning sunlight streamed in through the slats in the blinds. I sat up, had a smoke, then drank some booze out of the fridge. Back on the sofa, I switched the TV on and vegged out for a while. Then I heard my phone buzzing. I rose to my feet and retrieved it from inside my coat pocket. Who's this? Fujieda? I might be. My first reaction was to ignore it, but I answered. Fujieda. Voice was indeed familiar.
ああ。あんなので死ぬような間抜けじゃないだろ。携帯の番号が違うのは？
違う携帯からかけている。爆発が起こる前、事務所に一人でいたんだが、何者かに襲われたんだ。
襲われた？
ああ、向こうも一人だったかな。もみ合いになって、その時に携帯電話を落とした。それからすぐにビルを出たんだが、直後に爆発が起きた。犠牲になったのは、その時に私を襲撃した男だ。
That's kind of funny, actually. That's actually poetic justice to me.
今はどこにいる？
言えない。この会話も聞かれているかもしれない。
By someone you probably meant the Takusatogumi.
ずっと考えていたことなんだが、私は君を犯人だと、あるいは犯人の片棒を担いでいるのではないかと思っている。だが、同時に君が全ての謎を解く鍵だとも思っている。
You're killing me, Fujieda. You're suspicious about the wrong person.
君が何度も見るという悪夢も引っかかる。やはり君が思い出せば何もかも解決するのではないかと。
He paused.
先日のことを謝るつもりはない。
Towa's apparently not mad at you for it, so. In other words, what happened at the park?
別に謝ってもらいたいなんて思ってない。
そうか。
Silence fell between us.
調査はこのまま続けようと思っている。だが、大事なものを落としてしまった。
Something of critical importance. I had an inkling of what that might be.
多分それは俺が持ってる。
どういうことだ？
事務所に行ったんだよ、昨日の夜。
何をしに？
火事場泥棒。
Steal
その
stuff.
時にあんたの大事なものを拾った。
君は。
What followed was a stunned silence. He didn't sound angry, just
感
confused.
謝しろよ。で、どこにいる？あんたの居場所がわからなきゃこっちも動けない。
I sensed him thinking about it on the other end of the line.
分かった。君の携帯電話へ位置情報と部屋の番号を送る。
犯人だと疑ってる割にそういうところは緩いんだな。
確かに君のことは疑っている。だが、君が高里組の根回しに素直に応じる人間とも思えない。
I mean, I just don't like. Towa's like your only other ally. Like, you know? So, I understand the suspicion though. When dealing with gangsters, everyone's an enemy. You know?
榊に顎で使われるのは性に合わないんじゃないか。
Absolutely. With that, he hung up. I smirked. He sure had me pegged. A moment later, I got his location info and a designated meetup time, 6 p.m. I thought it might be the same condo where we waited out the rainstorm, but apparently not. Well, well, looks like he's alive after all. Sure enough, he was still willing to team up with me. Even after what he did to me and the threat he received from Takasatogumi, he didn't hesitate to call me up. Sakaki was right. He was committed to his objective. Sakaki also claimed that Fujieda was using me, but frankly, we were both using each other. We didn't have a choice. Our relationship was strictly business, nothing personal. And I found I kind of liked it. As do I. 6 p.m. rolled around and I headed out to the specified location. The place was your run-of-the-mill 15-story skyscraper in an area densely packed with high-rise housing. Nowhere near as fancy as the last condo, but on the other hand, no one would suspect that Fujieda would come here. Took the elevator to the 8th floor, then came to a stop outside our Ooh, outside apartment. Woo! 821. Bling bloom. I pressed the doorbell, and after a few moments, I heard the door unlock. Oh, so stop. Focus. Sorry. Fujieda peeked through the crack. He looked much younger without his glasses and slicked back hair. It was clear he was exhausted. The front door opened directly to the living room, which was much smaller than the last place. Once I was inside, Fujieda turned to me with a hard look on his face.
手帳を渡せ。
I had it right here in my coat pocket, but I wasn't going to just hand it over. I looked back at
お
him.
前も返せよ。
何の話だ。
ぬいぐるみ。事務所にはなかった。
He narrowed his eyes sharply.
まだそれを言うのか。
当たり前だ。
He's like, yeah, it's mine.
目的が同じである以上、真実が明らかになってからでも遅くはないはずだ。
I was like, I don't care.
だったらこれは貸しだ。
With a sigh, I pulled the memo pad out from my pocket and tossed it at him. He grabbed it and flipped through it.
その時、お前は今と違ってるんだろうな。
He muttered something, but I didn't catch it.
何？
何も。この手帳、中は見たのか。
He can't understand.
ああ、
I nodded casually. He shot me an icy glare.
見たけどよくわからなかった。でもそいつがあれば調査が進むんだろ
そうだ。この手帳には、これまで調べてきた情報のすべてが入っている。
As he spoke, he set the memo pad on the
う。写
table.
真に写ってる女の子が知人の妹ってやつなのか。
At this, he narrowed his eyes again.
君には関係ない。
I see.
別にそのくらいはいいだろ
知人の妹だ。
Sure.
う。柚木芽衣か。
その名前、いつ知ったんだ。
あんたが長谷川に写真を見せたとき。
Bitterly, he fell silent. For now, I decided not to mention that I seemed to recognize
そ
him.
の子を探すためにわざわざホストから弁護士になったのか。
He glared at
誰
me.
から聞いた。
榊から。
そうか。
ホストやってた時は結構なやり手だったらしいな。男でも女でも。
Towa
だから
said,
俺も平気だったってわ
I'll
け
talk
か。
about it. Towa's like, I'll talk about it. He averted his gaze and fell silent.
あの時のことについては、謝罪も弁解もしない。
こっちも謝ってほしいなんて思ってない。ああいうのは慣れてる。
そのようだな。君について調べていた時、その手の話を多く聞いた。あの時は他に方法が思いつかなかった。君はたとえ殺されたとしても喜びそうだからな。
Yeah, I chuckled. He was completely right. Evidently, he was so emotionally distraught that he couldn't stop himself, even though he knew better.
マヤの店のことをもう少し詳しく聞こうと思ったんだが。
However, he paused and forced himself to
彼
continue.
女は村瀬クリニックから搬送した先の病院で亡くなったそうだ。
Oh. Hasegawa died?
高里組の手が届かないよう新興味の外の病院を手配した。詳しい死因については調査中とのことだ。おそらく何も出ないだろうがな。
Hasegawa was dead. This was now the fourth person to suffer. One by one, the people from my past were dropping like flies. At this point, it couldn't be a coincidence.
一刻も早く忘れている過去を思い出せ。
Oh, Fujieda. I could feel his quiet urgency as he glared at me. His smoke was swaying gently. Felt like Fujieda had changed ever since he... At the park. His previous pristine white smoke was now all sorts of changing colors. Was there a crack in his armor? What if that armor fell apart? What would happen to him then? Personally, I was eager to see it for myself. Back at the clinic, I unlocked the side entrance and walked through the empty first floor. Upstairs, I pulled my coat off and switched the TV on. As it droned in the background, I drank and smoked. After I finished my cigarette, I grabbed my sketchpad and pencil off the coffee table. I flipped to a blank page, rested it against my knee, and started sketching. This time I drew a young girl. Same girl from the photo in Fujieda's memo pad. On a whim, I felt like sketching her. So I attempted to trace her from memory. I'd only just laid eyes on that photo of her after all. And yet for some reason, I felt like I'd already forgotten her again. I didn't remember her face. In my mind's eye, her face was blocked out by a black haze. What did her face look like? Maybe I'd remember as I went along. So I forced myself to keep drawing, but every attempt fell off somehow. I broke out in a cold sweat. My pencil felt slippery in my palm. I stopped, looked up at the ceiling, and closed my eye. There's no use. For some reason, I just couldn't draw her. I couldn't remember her face. I felt like I was choking on a large rock. I could scarcely breathe. Willing my racing heart to stay under control, I took a deep breath and opened my eye. Then I flipped to a new page and put a pencil to paper. This time, the curved lines overlapped to form the image of a young guy. As it turned out, I could sketch Fujieda without any trouble. Before I knew it, the page was covered in scars. They were the same scars I had seen on Fujieda's body. His memories were still freshly intact. It was so lifelike, it almost felt like the real Fujieda was right here in front of me. Big scars, little scars, laceration scars, burn scars. All of them looked to be very old. As I sketched, I got oddly absorbed in it, and the next thing I knew, it filled up 10 pages. Work. Then my focus faded, and my pencil fell still. I tossed it and the sketchpad back onto the coffee table, then grabbed a blister pack of sleeping pills. I popped one into my mouth and washed it down with a lukewarm swig from the floor bottle. After that, I flung myself down on the sofa and closed my eye. Slow damage. Pink! Oh gosh, here we go. Ah! The necklace is here. Unsurprisingly, my nightmare featured the little girl from the photograph. Her face was a giant hole. And yet, somehow, I could tell that she was looking at me. The dark hole had no eyes, nose, or mouth, and I still knew. Fear welled up inside me. I opened my eye. My whole body was slick with sweat. My chest was heaving. Without catching my breath, I rose from the sofa and started to head for the bathroom. Just then I heard a loud sound. I could hear people downstairs. Plus I could hear footsteps outside my window. I walked over to it and peeked out through the blinds. Squinting in the light, I scanned the area. There's a car parked outside the clinic. I saw a group of men run up to it. They piled into the car and it sped off. I stepped away from the window, grabbed my phone, and left the room. As I headed downstairs, I called Taku. By the time I reached the first floor, he still hadn't picked up. It was currently 9:30 a.m. I sent him a quick message, then walked around the unlit first floor. When I opened the door to the exam room, something felt distinctly off. And when I switched on the lights, I realized the place had been ransacked. I left the room and hastily went to check everywhere else. The waiting room, the reception counter, the staff, and the storage closet. All of them were a total mess. The car just now. Must have been Takasato goons. I paused in the waiting room to call Ray.
トワ、どうしたの？
タクがどこにいるかわかるか？
タク？どうして？連絡取れないの？
ああ、それにクリニックの中が荒らされてる。
どういうこと？
What's happening?
多分高里組だ。外に車が止まってた。
He fell into a stunned silence.
トワ、まだクリニックにいるのよね。
ああ、
今すぐそこから出た方がいいわ。また戻ってくるかもしれないし。私もタクに連絡してみる。友達にも聞いてみるから。あと、
He paused and suddenly gasped.
ごめんなさい。
Hmm?
でもない。それじゃあね。
Ray? With that, he hastily hung up. For a moment, this piqued my suspicion, but then I turned and hurried to the elevator. What is going on? Arriving at the third floor, I went into my apartment and shrugged on my coat, then left again. I took the elevator back down to the first floor, turned off all the lights, and left the clinic. Walking beneath the pale morning light, I thought about Taku. He said he was in debt with the Takasato Gumi. That was the only connection between them as far as I knew. Were they lashing out at him for failing to pay them? Possible they'd kidnapped him because of it. I couldn't be too sure. When I last checked, Taku seemed to be in good standing with them. Deep down, I had a feeling there was something else going on. Something worse. First things first, I decided to head downtown. In the end, I searched the downtown area top to bottom but couldn't get any leads on Taku. Truth behind the law office bombing, rumors fly about attorney Fujieda Rio, pinned down by the past, the fate of Takasato debtors, from the deathmatch area to the no entry zones. Leave behind. My body wasn't used to putting in so much effort and I was already exhausted. I walked into an empty alley. Leaning against the wall, I reached for my cigarettes, but just then I felt my phone buzz in my coat pocket. Pulled it out and checked the screen. It was a call from Taku.
今どこだ？
デスマッチエリアに来い。
Madarame? Bro, I don't have time. That was not Taku, but the voice was familiar. In fact, it reminded me of certain someone, but that couldn't be possible. It's Madarame. Well, it's Madarame time. Then I received a message from Taku's phone. GPS coordinates located in the deathmatch area. District A. Right now the whole place was off limits due to sinkholes. I pulled away from the wall and started walking, but then my phone buzzed yet again. This time it was a call from Fujieda.
ユーフォリアの店についての情報を得た。調べたいことがある。
あいにく取り込み中だ。
何かあったのか？
タクと連絡が取れない。今、タクの携帯から電話があった。別人の声でデスマッチエリアに呼び出した。
相手に心当たりは？
さあな、高里組の誰かじゃないか。
そうか。
そういうわけなんで、大事な話は後にしてくれ。
I hung up and stuffed my phone back into my coat pocket. My destination, the deathmatch area. Well, Madarame has to come eventually. Sorry. I'm so emotionally distraught. Okay. Inside the deathmatch area, I made my way to the marked location. As I walked between the abandoned buildings tinged red in the twilight, a lone figure stepped out into the road. He stumbled toward me. I squinted at him.
Taku.
Oh boy. Sure enough, it was Taku. He was hunched over, clutching his gut. His white lab coat was filthy, and I could see cuts and bruises out on his face.
どうしてここに？
お前の携帯から電話がかかってきた。
俺じゃない。
わかってる。
He's like, duh, I know.
逃げろ。早く。
Just then, someone shot out from the alley. They? I could see someone curled up in agony on the pavement. It was they?
レイ
とはなんでいるの
He winced as he spoke, his face riddled with
逃
wounds.
げて
Right as he shouted, however, someone else came strolling out of the alley. When I saw him, I felt my whole body tense up. Oh, I missed you. I've missed you,
久しぶりだな
Madarame. Long time no see, Towa. The man with the self-assured smile was none other than Madarame. When I got that call from Taku's phone, and I heard the voice on the other end of the line, Madarame was the first person I thought of. I was so sure it couldn't be possible. After all, Madarame was supposed to be dead.
お前でも驚くことがあるのか
Yeah.
まだらめ
せっかく戻ってきたんだせっかく戻ってきたんだ少し遊ぼうかと思ってなちょうど派手に暴れ回ってるやつがいたから構ってやったんだが
He glanced at Ray, then looked back at me. His eyes narrowed into slits.
余計なものまでついてきたようだな
Extra baggage. His gaze was directed over my shoulder. You did not show up. Fujieda? Oh my god. Oh my gosh, they're all here. They're all here together. Oh my goodness. I turned to look and my eye widened. There stood Fujieda, squaring up with Madarame.
藤枝さんなんで
場所を教えられたら駆けつけないわけにはいかないだろう少々探したが
Man, he's so attractive. It's not just his looks, just like Fujieda in general. Man, this chapter is so good. Okay. Can he fight Madarame? Madarame's scary. Like, Madarame's like really strong. He's like a monster. He is a is a monster. So, okay, let's see how this turns out. All the homies are here. We're all the gangs together. Sorry. Ugh.
まあいい観客が多い分には問題ないからな
Madarame shrugged casually.
とはお前は自分の過去を思い出そうとしてるんだってな手伝って
I can depend on Madarame though. I can absolutely
こ
do
の場
that.
所に見覚えはないか
やめろとは
At this, I looked around.
とはを巻き込むな関係ないだろう
Taku growled, glaring at Madarame.
お前が教えてやらなかった代わりに俺がやると言ってるんだ
Oh. I knew I could depend on Madarame.
ふざけるな
Taku, you need to sit down because you know what? You have caused me too much trouble. You've caused me so much trouble. I could have gotten to the answers quicker. I understand, Taku. I get it. But, you know, right now, sometimes we don't need Taku. We need Madarame. We need Madarame and Fujieda. We don't need Taku and Ray. But I tell you, I love Taku and Ray. But right in this chapter, Taku needs to step back.
とはあの建物を覚えてるか
Come on, baby. I looked in the direction Madarame pointed. Beneath the setting sun, I could see the silhouette of an old mansion. Instantly, my heart skipped a beat. Then my vision tilted, and the sharp migraine flared up. My legs gave out, and I fell to my knees.
とは
ほら少しきっかけを与えてやればいいだけだ
You know what, baby?
前村瀬先生
As Taku looked about, ready to bite Madarame's head off, Fujieda reached out and touched his
あな
shoulder.
たも怪我をしている無理に動かない方がいい藤枝さんだが
Taku shot Fujieda, pleading
な
look.
んだまだ少し時間がある遊ぶか
Madarame fixed Fujieda with a provocative smirk.
お前でもいいぞ来い
Oh, is this fair? Is this okay? Oh boy, this is like a Ooh, I'm not. No. Oh my gosh. Cannot be thirsty. Cannot be thirsty publicly. It's too late, but they're both so fine. I'm so sorry. Fujieda walked forward as if to shield the rest of us.
来ないならこっちから行く。
With that, Madarame charged at Fujieda. Despite his formidable height, he was as fast as a bullet. He closed it and swung his fist. Fujieda raised his bag and barely blocked it in time. For the briefest of moments, a smile rose up on Madarame's face. However, he kicked Fujieda in the gut, knocking the wind out of him and making him stagger. Yeah, Madarame's scary, y'all. Like, I wouldn't even try. I'd just be like, please, sir, don't hit me. As he righted himself, Fujieda glared back at Madarame, then lunged forward and swung his fist in kind. Madarame dodged easily and returned it with a punch to the gut.
もう少しやれるかと思ったが期待外れ。
Madarame, you're like a finessed machine. Like, you know. As Fujieda doubled over, Madarame began to launch into another attack.
マダルメ
I rushed over and jumped in between them. Madarame's fist grazed my head as I hit the ground on my stomach.
トワ
Towa!
Taku dashed over to me. Meanwhile, Rei slowly pushed himself up, gritting his teeth in pain. Fujieda frowned at me, then turned and glared at Madarame. But Madarame seemed to have lost all interest. His arms hung limply at his sides. His self-assured grin was gone, replaced by a pair of icy eyes that stared down at me.
つまらないことをするな、お前。
Enduring the pain, I glared back up at him from the ground. Just then I heard footsteps racing in my
マダルメ
direction.
さん
At the familiar voice, I raised my head. It's Kotaro, isn't it? It was Kotaro. I couldn't see him, but I was sure
塔
of
野
it.
が動いた
そうか、
Madarame turned away, then paused and looked over his shoulder at
時
me.
間切れだ。変わったな、お前。
With that, he ran off down the alley.
待て
Taku started to give chase, but fell still, wincing and clutching his gut.
動かない方がいいだがここは一旦引きましょう
Yeah, we gotta get out. Gritting his teeth, Taku hung his head in defeat.
君も大丈夫か
私よりトワを
Fujieda nodded and walked over to me. He crouched down.
あざになってるな
大した怪我じゃない。
どうして飛び出したんだ
As he spoke, he gingerly took my arm and hauled me up.
なんとなく。
With his help, I slowly rose to my feet.
それにしても随分好戦的な男だったな君の昔の男なんだろ
You could say that. Now that I wasn't expecting. I looked at him in surprise.
なんだって。
My ex, what?
昔の男と言った違うのか
違う。
Wrong. Shot back and turned away. Exactly how much of my life story had this managed to dig up?
君もだが村瀬先生と泉君も
あ
I nodded. He walked over to Taku and Rei and helped them both to their feet. They slowly started walking. I followed after them. The clinic was still just as messy as I'd left it, so Fujieda and I quickly tidied up the exam room, then brought Taku and Rei in for some simple first aid.
終わりました
Once he was finished, Fujieda let out a big sigh. Oh, a small sigh, sorry.
迷惑をかけた悪かったな
Taku donned a guilty smile, then looked over at Rei lying on the exam table beside him. Rei had clearly reached his limits because as soon as the first aid was over, he passed out. His breathing was slow and rhythmic.
二人同時に手当てをしたのはさすがに初めてでした
手慣れてるな。
村瀬先生の指示があったからな
As he spoke, I thought back to his scarred body.
しかし随分と散らかされたもんだな
He glanced around at the slightly less messy exam room inside.
道具を取りに行くついでに 他の場所も少し見てみましたが、薬品と書類の棚がかなり荒らされてま
Oh,
した。
they're probably looking for the drugs.
そうか。
Gotcha. Taku stared pensively at the floor, nodding slightly.
まだらめの仲間は遠野が動いたと言ってましたね。村瀬先生、何かご存知ですか？彼にデスマッチエリアへ来るように連絡をしたのはまだらめですね。
Fujieda glanced over me as he spoke.
まだらめがあなたを連れ去った。合っていますか？
Taku answered without looking up.
では、その理由は？
As Taku remained silent, Fujieda narrowed his eyes.
村瀬先生、
Taku, that's it. Come on. Taku's expression stiffened, then at last he conceded.
俺が遠野の仕事に関わっているからだ。
Taku makes it so difficult. Like, Taku's not like a terrible human being. He's only human. Like, but as everybody in this game tells him, it's just like if you keep too many secrets, it's going to only like destroy you, which we've seen time and time again. That's happened. Taku keeps trying to hide everything, and it's like it's not working. So if anything, he's making it worse.
遠野の仕事？
ああ。まだらめは俺を連れ去ることで遠野にプレッシャーをかけようとしたんだろう。トアとの接触も目的だったようだ。
どちらも直接本人のところへ行けばいいもの。なぜこんな回りくどいことを。
Madarame special.
ゲームがショーの感覚なんだろう。
Madarame special. He's a special guy.
なるほど。あなたが手伝っていた遠野の仕事とは？
Drugs. After a heavy silence, Taku exhaled.
新しい薬物の製造だ。遠野はそれを新興民に流通させて外にも流すつもりでいる。
新しい薬？そもそも新興味は高里組が許可した薬物以外禁止されているのでは？
それは全組長までのルールだ。薬をばらまけば手っ取り早く儲けることができる。遠野は榊が次の組長だと言われていることが気に食わないようだからな。強引にでも新しいビジネスを始めて榊を蹴落としたいんだろう。
なるほど。
Taku let out another sigh and buried his face in his hands.
俺は自首するつもりだ。薬の製造以外にも高里組から公にできない仕事を受けていた。高里組に借金があった。だから断ることができなかった。だがそれからどう？
He lowered his hands and looked at me.
まだらめが示していた場所を覚えてるか？
いや、
知りたいか？
He looked at me intently. I looked back at him and nodded.
あ
Let's go.
そうか。わかった。
He averted his eyes, summoned his resolve, then looked back.
あの場所にあったのはお前の母親マヤさんの店だ。
Maya-san's business, Euphoria. I heard Fujieda inhale sharply. Tension filled the air as Taku fell silent, his expression one of bitter regret.
また明日迎えに来る。
It was Fujieda who finally broke the silence. He spoke with a perfect poker face, then turned and headed for the door. And he left the exam room and then silence returned.
Do
Taku mumbled my name.
怒ってるか
I mean, if he is, it's fair. I looked at him in silence.
怒るって何を？
黙ってたことだ。
お前はその方がいいと思ったからそうした。それだけだろ。
At my response, he stared down sadly at his feet.
部屋に戻る。
ああ、
お前は？
今日はここで寝るよ。
わかった。
With that, I left the room. I headed to the elevator. As I crossed the familiar clinic floor, my feet felt like lead. Slow damage. So pretty! It's like pink and white. I think we're almost at like the end here, yeah? I don't think we're quite gonna finish in this part because I think we'll try for the bad ending first, and then I'll do Rei and Taku's bad ending, and then we'll end on a high note, and then we'll do our closing thoughts. You know, these are the parts that will come out. You know, so we'll do that. I lay in the center of the room. Scarlet light flickered all around me. Someone was standing to my left, silhouetted by the light. I couldn't see her face. Judging from her petite build, I knew it was a woman. Then I sensed a presence on my right and looked over. Another figure was standing there, this one much smaller than the woman on my left. A young girl, but I couldn't see her face either. The woman and girl stood there in silence with the scarlet light at their backs. When I listened closely, I could hear the girl sobbing. Her voice was filled with sorrow and it made my heart ache. As for the woman, however, I couldn't sense a thing. She was just standing there quietly. And out of nowhere, the scarlet light engulfed both of them. It ravaged them like flames, dissolving their figures into mist, and after they had been burned away completely, I thought I heard the girl's voice. Come on. When I opened my eye, my heart was racing abnormally fast. I rose from the sofa and headed to the bathroom. The floor was no longer littered with mirror shards. The mirror itself was still very much broken. I stepped into the shower stall and turned on the hot water. After I washed my hair and body, I walked out and toweled myself off. Then I got dressed and returned to the living room to find Taku and Rei waiting for me.
おはよう、トワ。もう昼だけど、
Ohayo.
ご飯作ってきたから久しぶりにどうかなと思って。
Rei smiled awkwardly, his bruises and cuts still fresh and grisly.
テーブルの上片付けるぞ。
Will do. Taku cleared off a space on the coffee table and Rei set his plastic containers down.
長谷川さんのことはもう知ってるか？
Yeah, we heard about her. Taku sat down in the chair across from the sofa and shot me an inquiring look.
知ってる。
そうか。
I fell silent and I looked at the floor.
ね、ご飯食べましょう。冷めちゃうし。
Yeah, let's eat, kids. Oh, that looks so good. Oh, that looks like tteokbokki. Looks so good. I don't think that's tteokbokki, but it looks like it. Oh, are those croquettes? Oh, tasty. Oh, I'm so hungry. Okay, focus. Rei spoke cheerfully as he sat down next to Taku. The table was now covered in plates, forks, drinks, and open containers of food.
いただきます。
Bon appetit! Itadakimasu! Taku looked like he had something more to say, but he reluctantly picked up his fork.
ミニオムレツ、ツナサンド、
Oh,
チ
they're
キンの
omelets.
トマト煮込みよ。
Why do they have a
どうかし
texture
ら。
like that, though? I made mini omelet tuna sandwiches and tomato braised chicken. Oh, it's tomato braised chicken. Looks like tteokbokki. How about it? Taku took a bite of his tuna sandwich.
うまい。
よかった。せっかくだからトアも食べて。
Ray grabbed my plate, put some food on it, and handed it back. I slowly straightened up and took the plate. This put a smile on his face. I picked up my fork, sliced up a bite of omelet, and slid it into my mouth. Felt like an eternity had passed since the last time I tasted Ray's home cooking. I looked over at him as he ate in silence. His injured face was painful to look at. Just then, a question rose in my mind. Back when Madarame summoned me to the deathmatch area, what was Ray doing there? I froze and looked up at him.
何があった？
At this, Ray frowned and looked at me. At first, he didn't seem to understand what I was asking, but as I gazed at him wordlessly, it dawned on him. All of a sudden, Ray looked like he was on the verge of tears. He hung his head, pursing his lips tightly.
私、あの時、まだらめと戦ってたの。榊さんの命令で。
No! I hate... Man, these guys need to get jacked.
榊の。
He looked up.
私、父親が。もうずっと会ってないんだけど。
I
高
knew
里
it.
組に借金
I
をしてて。
knew it. Oh! Screw that dude.
そのことで脅されて、榊さんにまだらめを牽制しろって言われてたの。タクがやってることも、榊さんから聞かされて、
Oh,
本当は知ってた。
Ray! He squeezed his eyes shut.
ずっと隠してて。ごめんなさい。
Taku's expression stiffened, then he fell silent. Likewise, Ray bit his lip as the blood drained from his face. I knew he was the one who went out of his way to set up this group lunch for us. And it probably would have been kinder to keep my mouth shut and avoid disturbing the peace. But I was compelled to ask. Neither of them seemed eager to talk about their problems, but I wasn't going to judge them. Didn't matter if it was right or wrong. It's what they had each decided for themselves. AKA none of my business. And the same applied to me too. No one had the right to stop me from learning about my past, no matter what came of it. After that, the conversation died. We spent the rest of our lunch in icy silence. Will we ever be free? Once we had finished our awkward lunch period, Taku and Ray left the room. As for me, I reclined on the sofa with a cigarette and started thinking. I never imagined that Sakaki would threaten Ray. If it was about his own debt, that'd be one thing, but his father's? That was a low blow. Yeah, screw that guy. And in the bombing at Fujieda's office, it was clear Sakaki was starting to go overboard. Maybe the conflict with Tono was starting to get under his skin. That's for sure. As I exhaled gray smoke, I heard the elevator start to move. Of course. Then the door opened and walked Fujieda. Come to think of it, he had mentioned something about coming to pick me up.
調子はどうだ？
Nah, he's alright. He hadn't even bothered to knock, and yet he didn't seem to feel bad about it either.
別に。
I answered curtly, then crushed my cigarette in the ashtray and lit a new one.
そうか。それなら出かける準備をしろ。
どこへ？
Yeah, where are we going? Squinting in the cigarette and smoke. I looked up at him.
マヤの店だ。デスマッチエリアで、マダラメが指定した場所を覚えているか？
Yeah, we probably should have done
マダラメ
that.
や村瀬先生が言っていた通り、あの場所に店がある。正確には店だった建物。だがな。日が高いうちであれば、デスマッチの参加者もそれほどいないだろう。
True. Admittedly, the deathmatch areas was practically deserted during daylight hours. Of course, this meant we'd be drawing attention to ourselves, but we'd be in relatively less danger.
準備をするのにも助けが必要か？
I think Towa's good. As I leaned back against the sofa, I attempted to parse whether he was joking.
誰が？
As if. I rose to my feet, pulled on my coat, and stuffed my phone and smokes into my pocket. Get ready, kids. I'm probably gonna cry. I headed downstairs and left the building. It was windy today, and a cold gust of air assaulted my face and hair. Outside, Fujieda was already waiting for me. I walked up to him. I know where to go. Alright, kids.
どうした？
いや、
No, just chatting a little before we go.
な。
Alright. Here we are. You know what? Let's save first. Okay. And we're finally reaching the finality of a Salah Damage. So, save is always good. Alright, kids. Off we go. We've come. We've arrived. Let's go. In the deathmatch area, every store was shuttered. You could see the passage of time in the thick layers of dust. It was 12:50 p.m. The sky was faintly gray, concealing the sun, and the air was freezing cold. Together, Fujieda and I traveled deeper into the decay. Until nightfall, this place was a ghost town. While the buildings often look eerie, draped in shadow, here in broad daylight, they just looked like the forgotten husk of a city that once was. That being said, the deathmatch area was never truly empty. As we walked, I could sense a presence tagging along behind
つけ
us.
られてる。
Fujieda whispered to me without turning his head. Approximately 5 of them, by my count. The next instant, the rhythmic footsteps suddenly exploded into a flurry.
来るぞ。
Fujieda started running, and I followed suit. But at one point, the pursuing footsteps split up. Skeptical, I kept running. Then 2 men ran out from a side street. Oh boy, not these guys. These are new NPCs. I could hear the rest of them approaching from behind. They must have split into 2 groups in order to box us in.
こんな真っ昼間からどうした兄ちゃんたち。道に迷っちまったのか？
Oh, you took the wrong turn. That's what's for sure. Fujieda glared at them from under his eyebrows. Normally, I would have been more than happy to let them all pummel me. But right now, I was on a mission.
なれるか？
Fujieda asked me under his breath.
あんたはどうする？
なんとかなる。
I'll figure something out. He would. As he spoke, he threw down the bag he was carrying. The men all lunged at us. Flicking my tongue, I dodged the fist that came barreling in my direction. These dudes were clearly inexperienced fighters, and it was all too easy to find an opening. One by one, I threw out punches to the jaw and gut, toppling them to the ground. After the third guy was done for the count, I looked over to see how Fujieda was doing. He was standing upright, shoulders heaving as he gasped for breath. Meanwhile, his opponents were all groaning on the ground.
意外とやるんだな。
Hey, he used to be an escort. I thought I might have to rescue him, but clearly I was worried over nothing. He retrieved his bag, then looked at me.
それなりには。
I mean, he wouldn't have muscles up in this club if he couldn't.
ホスト時代に培ったスキルか。
I was gonna say it. I teased him and he grimaced.
ノーコメントだ。
Very well. He grumbled back at me, then dusted off his jacket and started walking. Apparently, he wasn't eager to talk about his past.
高里組が巡回しているはずだ。注意して進むぞ。
Will do.
あ。
We stayed on guard and purposely chose dark, narrow alleys as we progressed. But whenever we tried to get closer to Maya's mansion, we sensed people nearby. Then we take a detour. Before long, I started to suspect that we were farther away than when we started.
このままだと目的地の周辺を回っているだけでいつまで経ってもたどり着けないな。
Fujieda leaned against the alley wall and peered out. Just then, out of nowhere, we heard a commotion.
なんだ？
The men loitering the streets all started to panic, and they formed a circle and started talking.
何かあったようだな。今のうちに行くぞ。
This is not a Rame type of beat. And so we crept past while they were distracted. Dang. At last, we arrived at our destination. The large dilapidated mansion stood at the center of District A, the deathmatch area. This was Euphoria, Maya's establishment. The building stood surrounded by overgrown weeds, its paint old and peeling. To me, it looked like a haunted house.
店には見えないな。
As Fujieda gazed up at the mansion, I became aware of a weight in my chest, ever so faintly suffocating. My heart started to race. The back of my neck flushed hot with impatience. My mother's business filled me with dread.
入るぞ。
Fujieda started walking in the direction of the front entrance, but I wasn't ready to follow him. My legs refused to cooperate, as if they were attached to someone else's body.
どうした？
Fujieda stopped and looked back at me dubiously.
なんでもない。
Forcing my legs to move, I dragged my heels with every step. Meanwhile, the feeling of dread intensified. Fujieda came to a stop in front of the large door, which was held shut with rusty chains.
俺がやる。
I crouched down in front of the door, pulled out my lock-picking tools, and got to work on the padlock. While it looked like a formidable lock, it was old and nearly busted. I could manage it. After a few attempts, I felt the telltale click of success.
開いた。
It's open. I pocketed my tools and straightened up.
泥棒の真似事もできるのか。
手先が器用なんだよ。
Fujieda rolled his eyes at me, then placed both hands on the door. The creak of the hinges echoed eerily as it slowly opened. All at once, the dust rose up, glittering in the rays of light that streamed in. The interior was dark and reeked of mold. We covered our noses and mouths with our arms so we wouldn't choke on the dust. Sunlight streamed in through the cracks in the ceiling, faintly illuminating the forgotten splendor of the mansion. That place is humongous. I can only imagine how luxurious it must have looked in its heyday. The grand staircase, thick velvet curtains, carefully placed sculptures threatening to topple over. All of it spoke volumes about the kind of place this once was. And I hated it. Suddenly a shudder ran down my spine. The weight on my chest grew heavier, and I clutched impatiently at my shirt collar, fingers trembling.
具合が悪いのか？
Fujieda looked over at his shoulder at me.
少しめまいがしただけだ。
I tightened my gut muscles to keep my voice steady. He gazed at me silently for a moment, then turned back and headed in deeper. At the center of the spacious foyer was a staircase with doors on either side. Halfway up the staircase split into spirals leading up to the second floor. And on the second floor was yet another staircase leading higher.
1階と2階は腐敗が進んでいるようだな。君は3階と4階を調べてくれ。
With that, Fujieda walked off to explore the foyer. Climbed the giant staircase to the second floor, then headed up to the third floor. The third floor featured 3 doors, 2 of which were open and one of which was locked. I poked around and unlocked the rooms, but other than layers of dust, they seemed like ordinary guest rooms. Next, I climbed the stairs to the 4th floor. Is it this one? Before long, I started to feel like I was running out of oxygen. Gasping for breath, I arrived at the 4th floor on shaky legs. The only source of light was a single small skylight. Oh, as I walked down the dim, musty hall, a steel door came into view. Oof. This is definitely ominous. Instantly, it felt like someone had grabbed me by the throat. A headache flared up, and my legs nearly gave out. Once I caught my balance, I looked up. The steel door stood there, blocking my path. Here in this old crumbling mansion, it alone seemed to radiate timeless strength. I was getting some Forbidden Room vibes. Then, out of nowhere, I found myself thinking, I don't want to go in. I tried to move my feet, but didn't have the strength. My whole body started to sweat, and my vision began to spin. Don't go any farther. It was that same voice again. But just then I realized something. The voice I'd been hearing all this time, it was my own. My instincts were trying to warn me. Gritting my teeth, I pressed a hand to the door. It didn't look like it was going to open, and if it didn't, I could simply turn around and leave. With that thought, I pushed the door, but while it was fairly heavy, it opened a lot easier than I was expecting. Oh, let's go, Towa. I pulled my hand away from the door and exhaled deeply. My symptoms weren't only worsening, but I couldn't afford— were only worsening, but I couldn't afford to stop now. I forced my unwilling feet to cooperate, all the while sweating while I was in a sauna. The room was dark and musty inside, probably from years of inactivity. The air was so humid, it felt like dog breath. Evidently, there were no windows in here because it was pitch black, or rather, it would be if I closed the door. I took one step inside and came to a stop, calming myself with deep breaths. Then I pulled out my phone and switched on the flashlight function. I'm afraid my heart skipped a beat and started throbbing hard. Don't go any farther. The voice rang out in my head and I nearly dropped my phone. My fingers were now slick with sweat, but it wasn't from the humidity. Then the door slammed shut behind me, engulfing me in darkness. All I could rely on now was the light from my cell phone. My heart was beating faster and faster, and I groaned through my teeth, struggling desperately to breathe. I could feel my legs buckling again. I reached out on reflex, and my hand touched the wall. Maybe I should turn back after all. But what if there's a clue about my past in here? Perhaps that was what my subconscious mind was truly afraid of. Digging my nails into the wallpaper, I hobbled my way forward. With my other hand, I held up my phone light. As far as I could see in the dim glow of my phone, there wasn't much there. Here and there, I caught glimpses of dirty carpet and old-fashioned wallpaper, faded and peeling, expecting to find something important here, so this kind of threw me for a loop. Maybe my paranoia got the better of me. I still felt sick, but my fear was primarily of the unknown. Now that I knew what was here, it was no big deal. Quietly, I scoffed at myself. As I scanned the wider area with my phone light, I caught sight of a black stain on the floor. It was old and rooted deep in the carpet. Upon further inspection, I realized it wasn't black. The dark brown. Oh, it's here. Just then my vision pitched sideways. Everything went black. I heard something heavy hit the floor and I opened my eye. But my body refused to budge. Belatedly, I realized I had hit the floor. I tried to get up, but my headache was now 1,000 times more painful and I winced. My ears were ringing sharply, drowning out any thoughts I might otherwise have had. No, not a ringing sound. Voices. Several voices overlapped, forming a discongruous drone that tormented my senses. Shut up. I wanted to shut it out. My limbs were frozen and numb, immobile. I felt powerless, like I was fighting against the current while it was purling me under. Couldn't breathe. A chorus of unfamiliar voices swirled inside my head like a hurricane. And I couldn't think straight. No. Stop. Go away. I curled up and shielded my head as if to defend myself from something. I could hear myself hyperventilating, and my abdominal muscles were spasming. An numb feeling in my limbs grew more intense, spreading throughout my whole body. The headache, the deafening drone, the rapid breaths. Felt like someone was stirring my brain around with a wooden spoon. Unable to bear it, I passed out. Alright. Come on, Towa. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. A small pair of lips formed each syllable one by one, parting slowly to pronounce them. It's okay. It was a woman's voice. Seductive scarlet light danced over the walls and floor. Her painted red lips spread into a smile. At first her face was blurry like a bad photo, but eventually she came into focus. This woman with a soft smile was my mother. I remembered her now. Oh my gosh, that's so scary. The instant I regained consciousness, vivid memories overlaid themselves on top of the indistinct room. Images flowed in front of my eye as if someone had hit play on my forgotten past. As a child, I spent the majority of my time here. I was always terrified of the silence that came whenever I was alone. Every day, someone different would come into this room. I was always blindfolded whenever we would play together, but I could figure out their gender and age range from their voice and presence. Results varied wildly from day to day. Sometimes they would request for 2 children to play with each other. These people would always smile at me. I could feel their glee, even if I couldn't see it. Their smiles weren't meant to reassure me. It was the delight of a predator who had found the perfect prey to sate their desires. Ugh. I remembered now. I remembered what I used to do in this room and what was done to me. All of it.
Oi.
The sudden bright light made me squeeze my eyes shut. Once it faded, I opened it again and found Fujieda there.
どうした？何かあったのか？
My mind was drawing a blank. I tried to process what he was saying, but felt confused. What was he doing here? Then I realized I was lying on the floor. He was kneeling beside me. Bright light from earlier was his cell phone light.
動けるか？
He slid an arm around my back and slowly eased me into a sitting position. As time passed, my brain started to function again and the memories came flooding back. As a child, I was always locked up in here. This was the place where a sudden wave of nausea struck. Clapping a hand to my mouth, I turned away.
大丈夫か
The auditory hallucination overlapped with his voice, and my stomach emptied its contents on the floor. Then the headache and deafening drone returned.
その言葉
言葉
言うなそれを
それなん
If he said it again, I felt like I was going to puke my
大
guts out.
丈夫
I felt a familiar urge swelling in the back of my throat, but I managed to hold it
何
in.
か思い出したのか
I gasped for breath.
よく母親が言ってたその言葉を笑いながら俺が何をされようとどんな目に遭おうとも大丈夫って
Oh, I always hated that word. Every time I heard it, my vision would blur a little, but I never understood why until now.
思い出したんだな
Slowly, I nodded.
いつからかその言葉を聞くたびに自分の感覚が死んでいくような気分になったどうにもならないような絶望的な状況でもあの女は笑いながら言ってただからその言葉は俺にとっては呪いだった
一体過去に何があった
I closed my eye and exhaled. It took some courage to recount the very memories I'd spent so long trying never to remember. Frankly, I wish I could forget them all over again.
マヤの店については長谷川が言っていた通りだ年派も行かない子供がたくさんいていろいろなことをやらされてた俺もそのうちの一人だった
待ってくれマヤは君の母親だろうそれはつまり
Apparently.
実の子供に客を取らせていたと
Apparently.
あ
Stared at me, mouth agape.
俺の体の傷はその時につけられたものもある生稲、朝倉、桐原客の名前だこの部屋で俺を傷つけた
That's right. I remember now. At the time I was blindfolded, so I couldn't be sure. But now I was confident. That torn out paper was a record of the scars from my past.
それじゃ君の妹のことはどうなんだ思い出したのか
I sucked in a breath and looked away.
思い出したけど
I squeezed my eyes shut. A vision of the girl rose up behind my eyelid, the same face I could never remember before. Slowly, I opened my eye again.
この部屋で俺と妹は一緒にいたそう思ってた
違ったのか
ああ
My voice shook and I pursed my lips.
俺と一緒にいたのはあんたの手帳に挟まってた写真の子だ
Fujieda's expression twisted and he let out a quavering breath. His smoke thrashed and darkened in color. All this time we fought over that bunny toy. I thought it belonged to my sister, while Fujieda thought it belonged to his friend's sister. Turned out Fujieda was right. That toy didn't belong to my sister. She didn't die of an illness. This whole time I was wrong. She wasn't even my little sister at all. I had simply deluded myself into thinking she was. Fujieda had called the girl in the photo Yuzuki Mei. He was so obsessed with finding her. Now he looked like his whole world was falling apart. Is Yuzuki Mei really his friend's little sister?
聞きたいことがある
We're here! Okay, kids, okay. We will
なんだ
be
言ってみ
doing
ろ
the bad ending first. Oh boy. Hey, kids. Okay, let's do it this way. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna do the round one thing right away.
わからない。
どうした？
なんて言葉だ。
Okay.
ん？
Okay, we're trying to get the bat in, so we gotta gut it. We gotta get it. Okay. Where's got my god?
ダメだ。
Let's just crack the.
おい、
Yeah. Oh, did I not crack the? I didn't feel anything. I just couldn't understand. Let's try again. Okay, so we have to get there
なんだ？
and then get the wrong one. Okay. I have never tried so hard to get a bad ending so bad before. Okay. Okay, let's try.
Ah. 赤い。みんな赤く。
赤？
赤い。全部赤く。俺も彼女も。
どうした？おい！しっかりしろ！くそ！戻ってこい！トワ！トワ！
俺を呼ぶ声が聞こえた。そうだった。これが。
Okay. Oh my lord. What if... Man, I'm tired. I'm emotionally drained. Is what's happening. Okay.
少女の写真。写真。
ああ。
見せてくれ。
Fujieda pulled the photo from his memo pad. The photo of Yuzuki Mei. He pursed his lips tightly, holding something back.
お前の妹か。
そうだ。
俺に妹はいない。子供の頃一緒にいたのはお前の妹だ。忘れてた。今まで全部。
君は。そうか。
I knew it. That's the girl I was with.
それは。
あ
おい。
What else? Ugh, so emotionally exhausted I be. Okay. Okay. Did I break it? Darn! I need to break it! Ah! Okay.
Shashin.
あ、
見せてくれ。
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna have to run through this in a bit of a roundabout way, but we're gonna get the bad ending first. So you're gonna see my reactions, and then we're gonna have the bad ending, and then we're gonna go through Ray and Taku's bad endings, and then we'll end it on a good note and do the good ending because I can't emotionally. I'm tired. So let's do it. Okay. So, but yeah, the realization though that, you know, the girl is Fujieda's sister and not Towa's sister, and that Towa's so mentally like he's so PTSD that he's like, yeah, I had a sister, and it's like he did not have a sister. Ugh. Oh, I'm just so sad. Okay. Ugh. The photo of Yuzuki made. He pursed his lips tightly, holding something back.
お前の妹か。
そうだ。
俺に妹はいない。子供の頃一緒にいたのはお前の妹だ。忘れてた。今まで全部。
君は。そうか。それは。
At 1000%.
ああ。
おい。
Come on, bestie, you can do it. Got it. Got it, Toa. Okay, go. Is this show like sensitive too? It's like it's actually one wrong one. It just cuts. It doesn't even do like the end. I tried to call her name, but my voice.
無理するな。
Oh my god, sir, you're so saying that.
落ち着け。
Do what you can. I can just speak, even a tiny whisper.
向き合う。
You got this, baby. You can do this.
おい。
Okay.
そうだな。
Perhaps we better get out of here.
これは俺は
しっかりしろ。聞かせてほしい。
ああ、思い出した。これが柚木メイ。
You got this, honey. You got it, you got it.
柚木メイ。 お前の妹の名前か。
そうだ。
お前の妹は客を取らされている俺のことを気にかけて一緒に逃げようと言ってくれた。諦めたらダメだって最後までそう言ってた。俺もその時思ったんだ。逃げようって。理由はわからない。でもなぜかそう思って二人で逃げ出そうとして捕まって連れ戻されて、俺はひどく痛めつけられた。彼女のことはそれから見なくなったんだ。ただ戻された部屋にはぬいぐるみが転がってて、彼女が大切そうにずっと持ってた。変わったのはその後からだ。彼女を殺したのがあの女、母親なんだと思ったらよくわからない感情がこみ上げてきて、それがどうしようもない怒りだってことに後から気づいた。あの女から離れようとそう思わせてくれたのは彼女だった。
それは本当なんだな。
ああ。
Yuzuki-me. Oh, he can't see it. Where am I? Oh. Oh. No, not like that. Oh
お
no.
兄ちゃん。
Oh. 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 Right. After I told him everything, Fujieda's expression was a blank canvas. His eyes were soulless and empty. His usual confidence was gone, and his smoke was fading weakly. Silently, he took me by the arm and hauled me up onto my feet. Then he turned and staggered unsteadily out of the room. The door swung shut. His cell phone light disappeared with him. In the darkness, I realized something was glowing by my feet. It was my cell phone. I must have dropped it. Thankfully, the flashlight function was still on. I picked it up and started to shine it around, but changed my mind. I turned the beam of light toward the steel door and slowly started walking. I could only vaguely remember what happened after that. At some point, Fujieda disappeared, so I left Maya's mansion and went back to the clinic. I arrived as the sun was setting. Right as I walked in, however, I heard a commotion. The ransacked first floor was now neatly tidied up, though it wasn't exactly the way it was before. Without thinking too hard, I walked into the waiting room. There, Arimura flagged me down. Now that I thought about it, wasn't the clinic supposed to close for the winter holidays? If Arimura was there, then something must have happened. I could hear him rambling at me, but my brain was switched off, and I couldn't understand him. Something about an attack, lots of emergency patients. To me, it felt like it was all happening on another planet. Madarame's attack, right? I went up to my apartment, pulled off my coat, grabbed a bottle of booze off the floor, and sat down on the sofa. Poured the alcohol down my parched throat, and stared into space without bothering to turn the TV on. When I regained my lost memories in Maya's mansion, it screwed me up really hard. On the calm after the storm, my head was just empty. I wasn't rejecting my past. My brain just couldn't process it fully. Still, I could tell that something had distinctly changed. I felt guilty. Until now, this was highly uncommon for me. I used to feel this way as a kid, but if so, I sure couldn't remember it. But now feelings of guilt had sprouted up in my heart regarding that girl, Fujieda's little sister. She was my ray of light. Then, I was powerless to oppose my birth mother's cruelty. That little girl was the only one who reached out to me. But now she was gone. She tried to help me escape, but we were captured, and after that I never saw her again. Most likely she was murdered by Maya. If only I could have died in her place. No matter what they put her through, they never broke that little girl's spirit. She always used to tell me that her big brother was coming to save us. Surely did she deserve to live way more than I ever did. I sighed, leaned back against the sofa, and closed my eye. I was always so complacent with my life. I made all of my own choices, so if I wound up dead, I had no regrets. Or so I told myself. What if I was only alive at someone else's expense? What if the only thing that spared my life was the sacrifice of another, more worthy life? Could I still claim that I was expendable? I was questioning my entire life story. I was anxious and unstable. Did my life have any meaning? Is there any point in being alive if it meant she had to die? As I slumped into a depressive state, I heard a shy knock at the door. And it slowly opened, and Ray walked in. I could still see bruises and cuts on his face.
急にごめんね。今急患が運ばれてきてるから、トアにも手伝ってもらおうかと思ったんだけど。
I don't know, Ray. He seemed to sense that something was going on with me because he paused to search for the right words.
何かあった？
何も。
I answered in a low voice without looking at him. I didn't want to talk to anyone.
でも、
ほっといてくれ。
The words weakly left my lips.
トア。
頼むから、ほっといてくれ。
My voice was too hoarse to be commanding, and faded uselessly. All I wanted was to be alone. Oh, I started to say something, but instead quietly left the room. After the door shut behind him, I staggered to my feet and headed to the bathroom. There, I stood in front of the sink and stared at myself in the mirror fragments. My face looked just like Maya from my dreams. Slowly, my lips curled into a smile. No, I was hallucinating. I wasn't smiling at all. Uncontrollable anger welled up inside me, and I punched the mirror as hard as I could. The remaining mirror fragments splintered outward, then I slammed my face into it again and again. After that, I slowly slid down into a crouching position. Flecks of blood dripped onto the shards of glass on the floor. It's okay now. It's okay. Her voice echoed in my ears. I screamed and staggered to my feet. Then, without bothering to wash my face or even grab my coat, I left the apartment. Downstairs, I left through the side entrance and staggered out into the narrow alley. Outside, the sun had set, and it was getting dark. I traveled silently down the alley. No one else was around to see my bloody face. Then the park came into view up ahead. Beneath the navy sky tinged faintly with orange, the street lamps flickered to life. I walked into the park and headed straight for the concrete tunnel. Then I crawled inside, leaned against the curved wall, and let out a small sigh. My brain still felt fuzzy. Half-dried blood dripped down from my forehead, emitting a strong coppery smell. Spontaneous shiver ran down my spine. Not only had I left without a coat, but I had lost more blood than I initially realized. My next thought was to light a cigarette to stay warm, but I hadn't brought those either. I pressed the back of my head against the concrete and closed my eye. It's okay. Maya's voice revived in my ears. I'd remembered everything. Everything she used to do. What she used to be like. All this time I was told she was a wonderful woman with a quiet personality. And in a sense, that was true. But those things only applied to her outward persona. On the inside, however, that woman was cunning and cruel. She could order someone's murder with a soft smile on her face. That was how she treated me too. She treated me like an object without batting an eyelash. I was never able to oppose her. If I tried to resist, I would be severely punished. Maya was the kind of woman who wouldn't be satisfied unless she got her way. She would use any means to achieve her ends. She would wear a stunning smile to deceive everyone around her, then lead her prey into a trap to get rid of them. I had to guess she was probably a sociopath. That was how she managed to play the part of the perfect woman. She could tell exactly what you wanted at any given moment, and she would offer it to you. To her, everything in the world was a toy at her disposal. Her own son was a little more than a doll. A mannequin to be dressed and posed at a whim. How did she feel watching her clients torment her biological child at Euphoria? It felt like my whole life had gone according to her plans. It made me sick. Why did I have to choose the same name as her business? All because of these disgusting blood ties. It made me want to puke. I let out a long, shaky breath. Was the cold getting to me, or... I wrapped my arms around my legs and buried my face in my knees. Back then, I was just her property, her plaything. What about now? I didn't understand why I was still alive. Existence was so utterly meaningless. Choosing to die would be even more pathetic. These questions swirled around in my head, driving me to the brink of insanity.
殺すなんてお前にとっちゃ生ぬるいだろ。どうすればもっと痛めつけられるんだ。
Looking back, Fujieda was right about me. Death was a mercy for someone like me. I crawled out of the tunnel and started walking. I didn't want to think about anything anymore. So I need to find a way to switch my brain off. Be it pain or pleasure, I didn't mind either way. I wanted to make myself utterly incapable of coherent thought. Outside the tunnel, it was now pitch dark. With the light of the street lamps at my back, I headed down the shadowy street. The ground was painfully cold against my cheek. I took a few shallow breaths, blinking slowly. I didn't want to think about anything, and now I was lying in a dark alley like a piece of trash, just as planned. I wanted someone to beat me to a pulp, so I picked a fight with a group of nasty-looking thugs. The men were gathered at the dead end of the alley getting high on drugs. Illegal drugs, judging from their bloodshot eyes and restless fidgeting. That's why I chose them. At first they scrutinized me suspiciously, but when I told them they could do whatever they wanted to me, they readily agreed. From their perspective, they didn't care that I was a guy as long as I could make them feel good. Ugh. In the end, I was punched and kicked until I puked up stomach acid, then tied up and gagged. The forest ripped. They cheered and tried to tear it wider. It lasted for what felt like hours. After they got bored, they left me on the ground in the alley, pants off, filled and covered with semen and blood. My body was in agony. If someone were to see me, they'd probably think I was dead. But I didn't mind. If anything, I felt like they didn't go far enough. I wanted more. Slowly, I sat upright and sluggishly dressed myself. Wincing at the sting of pain, I put a hand to the wall and heaved myself onto my feet. Ugh. Gosh, I'm really... I know there's more. It's just, oh my gosh, the emotional up and down is really like, ugh. I coughed down at the ground and blood and saliva trickled out. My cut must have cut my mouth when I got punched. If this still wasn't enough, then the only option left would be to off myself. I leaned against the wall and thought about it. If I wanted to die, how would I go about it? Eventually, I remembered all those cans of paint thinner in my apartment. My lips twisted into a sneer as I started walking, one hand braced against the wall. I needed to get back to the clinic before sunrise. If anyone saw me like this, things would only get more complicated. Unfortunately, the pain made it hard to walk. Those dudes might have broken a couple of my ribs. Nevertheless, I continued one step at a time, hoping death would bring me comfort at last. Carefully, I crept into the clinic through the side entrance, then climbed the stairs to my apartment. Couldn't risk Taku or Ray finding me. Not this time. Once I finally dragged my heavy body all the way home, I let out an exhausted sigh. Then I walked over to the graveyard of flipped canvases. These paintings represented all the art I created within my lifetime, and they came in all different sizes. I grabbed a few and tossed them onto the floor. Once they were all in the same area, I walked over and arranged them so they formed a circle around me. Then I scattered my paints, brushes, wooden palettes, and sketch pads on top. Once everything was in place, I stepped out of the makeshift canvas circle. Then I grabbed my coat off the floor and retrieved my phone, cigarettes, and lighter. I lit a cigarette, took a long drag, and checked the phone screen. I received a call from Fujieda a few hours ago. Messages too. But I didn't care about any of that. Tossed my phone onto the sofa. After I finished my smoke, I crushed the bud in the ashtray and carried the lighter back with me to the canvas circle. Then I grabbed a bucket of highly flammable paint thinner and dumped it over my head. The pungent stench clogged my nostrils and the thinner made my open wound sting. Now I just needed to light myself up and it would all end. Here I was, moments away from my own demise, and my heart was as peaceful as a moonless night. No fear, no impatience, nothing. Just the faint hope of freedom. A glimpse of the light at the end of the tunnel. Looking around, it felt like I was the sacrificial offering on some kind of summoning circle, and it made me laugh. I should have done this sooner. All this time, I didn't feel the need to die, so I simply let myself exist. I figured death would come for me eventually, because I never found who I truly was meant to be. I wasn't even human, just my mother's plaything. Every breath that filled my lungs was taken in trade for a more worthy life. Now that I had learned the truth, I'd finally reached enlightenment. I couldn't simply wait around for death. Death was my mortal imperative. Paint thinner dripped from my bangs as I gazed down at the lighter. Soon it would finally end. All of it. Now all I had to do was... I took a deep breath and started to flick the lighter. But just then, out of nowhere the door flew open. Holding the lighter, I slowly turned to look. Ah, Fujieda. What? So nice of you to join us. Oh god. the emotional roller coaster I feel, because I was like, Towa is not gonna perish, Towa's not gonna perish, Towa's not gonna perish. I'm just like, every time he talks, I'm just like Fujieda stared at me in stunned silence. He scanned the room, then looked back at me. His voice sounded so strange now that the room was staged for my pathetic ritual sacrifice.
関係ないだろう。
My voice cracked and I turned away.
死ぬつもりなのか。
At this, I almost burst out laughing. Congratulations, you have eyes.
見たまんまだよ。
In spite of my amusement, my voice came out curt and flat.
何しに来た？
君に電話をした。メッセージも送った。
Oh, his smoke is not. Smoke is like pink.
知らない。
だろうな。そう思って
Oh,
直接来た。
it's like stressing me out.
君は
He paused to choose his words carefully.
自分で描いた絵とともに心中するつもりなのか。
It
過去を
wasn't.
思い出したのが
It
原因
wasn't.
か。
It wasn't his usual self. I could feel tension. Sorry, I'm like really. I'm like really emotional. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Oh, I could feel tension in the way he enunciated every word.
ユーフォリアの絵は人の欲望が最高潮に達した瞬間を描いてる。けどそれはあの女がマヤがやっていたことと同じだった。あの女はユーフォリアという名前の店で客が心に秘めた欲望を解放する手助けをしていた。それどころかお前の妹まで。
His expression clouded over and he frowned slightly.
俺はあの女の息子で道具だった。あの女は目的のためなら平気で人を傷つけて殺すことができる。そんな女に育てられて生きる術を教え込まれた。それがまともな教育だったと思うか。あの女から教わったのは人を思い通りに動かす方法ばかりだ。絵本を読んでもらう代わりにそういう話を聞かされて育った。俺には骨の髄まであの女の考えが染み込んでる。だから無意識に同じ行動をとってる。あの女のコピーなんだよ、俺は。
Well, this explains his apprehensiveness and phobia of women.
でも思い通りにはさせない。俺が死ねば全て終わる。何もかも。
Fujieda listened quietly as I spat the words out.
死んで過去が変わるのか。
There was no accusation in his tone.
俺もお前も妹もマヤに振り回されてもてあそばれた。その事実がお前が死ぬことで変わるとでも言うのか。
He's right.
お前に何がわかる。
苦しいのはお前だけじゃない。死ねば全てが終わる。逃げているだけだろう。
To be fair, Fujieda, I mean, you weren't very comforting for a little bit there. For a little bit, you kind of like ditched a homie when he was fragile.
逃げて何が悪いんだよ。
死は一番手っ取り早く楽になる方法だ。過去を思い出してもなお生きることはお前にとって地獄にも等しい苦行になるはずだ。それでも歯を食いしばって生きることに意味があり懺悔にもなる。違うか。
Fujieda So I'm gonna take a moment. Yeah. Fujieda says, gritting your teeth and fighting. It's a way to atone, and the phrase a couple of my friends like to use is called "we continue to live out of spite." Sometimes. Sometimes when life is far too difficult, we remember that even if there's anything left, we can always live spitefully. Just despite the powers that seem to want to put us down. So Fujieda uses the metaphor of continuing to live and exist is atonement. Because in their case, Towa feels as if he is unworthy in comparison to Fujieda's sister. Towa feels like he should have been the one to die instead of her because he's worthless, or he perceives himself worthless. But Fujieda says his atonement for her would be to just live. I hate to talk about the movie. He exhaled and looked away.
俺も地獄を生き抜いてきた。俺はただ妹の真実が知りたくて、そのために生きてきたんだ。
His voice shifted to flat exhaustion. His swaying smoke fell still. Just then I realized he's been fighting all this time. Fujieda had clawed his way up from the jaws of certain death, an endless struggle that had lasted years, where his mind could only be counted in hours.
真実を知って今
If he'd lost his purpose in life, then surely he could see the appeal of death, right?
犯人を殺してやりたいと思った。だがマヤはすでに死んでいる。俺は長年抱いてきた憎悪をどう消化すればいいのかわからなかった。心が空っぽになったような気がした。だから妹のことを考えた。こういう時、妹なら、メイならどういうのか、どうするのか。
He paused to exhale sorrowfully.
メイが死んだという真実を知って初めて、そう考えることができるようになったんだ。メイの気持ちを考えることができた。それまではただ犯人を追い詰めることだけを考えていた。とにかく犯人を見つけて殺してやろうと。メイは生きていると信じて、そう思い込もうとしていた。だが本当はうすうす分かっていた。メイはきっともうこの世にはいないのだろうと。それでもその事実を受け入れてしまったら動けなくなると思った。
Slowly he clenched his hands into fists.
メイが死んでいたとはっきり分かったとき、もう俺の中には怒りも憎悪もなかった。あまりにも時間が長くかかりすぎて、とっくの昔に燃え尽きてしまっていた。だから心が空になってようやくメイと向き合った。 メイはきっと俺が犯人を殺すことも俺自身が死ぬことも望まない。そういう子だ。メイならきっと生きてほしいと願うだろうと。
He looked at me. His gaze was heartfelt and full of light.
あの子のことを、あの子と一緒にいた時間を思い出したのなら、お前にもわかるはずだ。あの子はお前を助けようとしたんだろう。お前を放り出すことなく二人で生きようとしたんだろう。メイのおかげで生きる意志を取り戻したとそう言っていただろう。だったらお前は生きてくれ。あの子の最後の望みを叶えてほしいんだ。
The light in his eyes grew stronger and stronger.
お前は人の願望が叶った瞬間を、命を燃やし尽くす瞬間を描いてきたんだろう。ユーフォリア。だったらメイの望みを叶えてくれ。あの子が生かそうとした命を殺さないでくれ。
Fujieda is in the wrong business. He needs to like he needs a different job. He should pursue a different
メイを思う気持ちがお前の中にあるのなら。
Stared at the floor. Quietly, I lowered the lighter. How was I supposed to argue with that?
俺は妹の真実を知ることができてよかったと思っている。妹の真実を知らずにいた時よりもいくらか楽になった。お前もマヤの被害者だった。ただマヤの子として生まれてしまっただけで。だから本当に憎むべき相手はお前じゃない。その話をするために来てみたらこれだ。
He chuckled and gazed at me. For some reason, I felt the urge to get away from him. I've never felt like that about anyone before. It scared me to think he could see right through me. As our eyes met, he took a step forward.
俺はこれまでのお前の生き方が嫌いだった。最低だと思っていた。だが
You can't judge me. You're an escort, sir. You can't judge Towa. Towa's just trying to live.
本当はお前の気持ちがわかるんだ。わかってしまう。お前はマヤに振り回されてこうなった。妹は母親に売られた。金のために。俺たちも肉親のせいで人生をめちゃくちゃにされた。だからお前の今の姿は俺だったのかもしれないと心の奥では分かってたんだ。初めて会った時から。だがそれを認めるわけにはいかなかった。認めたら今の自分を否定することになる。俺はメイを探すために藤枝亮という鎧をまとってここまで来たんだ。 そう思う一方で、お前と一緒にいるうちに、お前は俺と同じ人間なんだという思いが強くなっていた。メイのことが分かって気持ちの整理がついた後、俺の中にあったのはお前のことだ。
I think you better shower him though. He's been out there. He took another step.
お前を放っておくことはできない。
It's just a huge sorry. I'm sorry. It's like in my face right now. Okay, I need a little laughs, okay? You gotta forgive me, okay? He stared at the floor, unmoving. He moved in front of me and gently clasped the hand that so loosely had held the lighter.
本当にひどい格好だな。オイルの匂いも。
He crouched down slightly to peer at my face. There was no hatred or anger in his eyes, just warmth.
風呂に入れ。万が一、引火したら村瀬先生に迷惑だろ。
That's true. That's true. His voice called to me, felt almost gentle. Fujieda didn't want me to die. He wanted me to live. He wanted to close the door on my chance at death and send me instead down the path of atonement. Who could hate him for that? I certainly didn't have the right to complain, so I couldn't fight it. He put a hand on my back. At his prompting, I started walking. On the way to the bathroom, I nearly tripped over my own 2 feet, but he caught me. Once we reached the shower stall, my knees buckled and I crouched down. While my pain tolerance was pretty high, my body still had physical limitations, and the exhaustion had rendered me immobile.
そのままでいろ。
Fujieda pulled off his jacket and pressed both hands to my head. His nimble fingers combed through my hair.
出血は止まっているか。
Relieved, he grabbed the shower head and turned on the water ever so slightly at a low pressure.
水で洗ったとしても、おそらく痛むだろう。やめておくか。
I shook my head. At this point, it didn't matter what part of me hurt.
耐えられなかったら言ってくれ。
We won't try, honey. As he spoke, he gradually ran the light spray of warm water over my head. The stream wasn't strong at all, but my wounds ached regardless. Then he started gently raking his fingers through my hair.
しみるか。
The motions pulled against my sore skin, but nevertheless I shook my head. For some reason, I didn't want him to stop. When I looked down at my feet, I could see blood and paint thinner swirling down the drain with the water. After he took his time rinsing my hair, he paused.
服を脱げ。脱げるか。
To do that, I would need to stand up. I put a hand to the tile and slowly pushed myself up. Then I attempted to peel off the wet clothes clinging to my skin, but my fingers were too weak. Fujieda sensed that I was struggling and joined in to help. Once I stripped naked, I heard him chuckle and looked over on reflex.
いや、昔、メイが小さかった頃、着替えを手伝ったことを思い出した。
It's a little weird, but I'm gonna let that go. I'm gonna let that go. His wry grin tinged with embarrassment. Then he looked at my body and narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing my fresh cuts and bruises with a frown. He then turned my attention to my turpentine-splattered eye patch. He shot me an inquiring look, silently asking for my blessing. When I nodded, he gingerly reached out for it. Then he peeled it off of me, exposing my empty right socket. For a while, he gazed at it in silence. At one point, he started to reach out to it, but caught himself and averted his eyes.
体くらいは自分で洗えるだろう。
Suddenly his attitude turned standoffish. He stopped the water and set the shower head back on its hook. I leaned against the wall, unmoving. I didn't have the energy for any of that. And I felt something unpleasant trickling from the booty and stiffened up slightly. Ugh. Yeah. Decided to make a late appearance. Fujieda noticed my behavior and looked at me with a confused frown.
どうした？
Gosh, how humiliating. Wordlessly, I looked down at my lower body. He followed my gaze and his frown deepened. For a while, he stared at the milky fluid dribbling down my inner thigh, and out of nowhere, he grabbed my arm. He turned me around, pressed me against the wall, and spread my cheeks with one hand.
本当にお前はどうしようもない。
That word. I don't know why that word makes me laugh. Incorrigible? Muttering, he slid a finger in. It wiggled around in there, scraping out the last traces of lust.
これも自殺の一環だったんだろうが、もう二度とするな。
He does this a lot, Fujieda. Like, you know, it's... The stimulation of my inner walls provoked pain and other feelings that sent a shiver down my spine. I knew it wasn't his intention, but I couldn't fight the arousal. I clung to the wall and endured it until he pulled out. Next, he turned the water back on, hotter this time. Fluids from Dabute mingled with the hot water and swirled down the drain. Wordlessly, he grabbed a sponge, poured body wash onto it, and worked up a lather. Then he washed my body, and my only option was to let it happen. The soft, slippery sponge felt good against my skin. He seemed like he was angry when he was cleaning, but now his touch was gentle. I followed the sponge with my eye. I didn't see any scars on his arm, and I knew he had a lot of them. I slowly turned my body to face him. Then I grabbed the arm he used to wash me and pulled him toward me. He stumbled forward, pressing his free hand to the wall to brace himself. Okay, you know... Trying to, you know, be decent human being. Okay, smooch mooch. Kiss kiss fall in love, I guess. Oh, mercy. He stumbled forward, pressing his free hand to the wall to brace himself. As a result, he ended up under the shower stream. As he slicked his hair back with his fingers, I leaned in.
見たい。
Ayo? I whispered so faintly the shower drowned it out. He shot me a quizzical look.
あんたの体が見たい。俺と同じ。
Why is that so spicy? Sorry. I figured he would get uncomfortable and say no. Despite that, I found myself compelled to ask. I wanted to see it again. A body like mine, covered in scars. He narrowed his eyes slightly, then without another word, he started to strip. Before long, he was just as naked as I was. Not the music. Breath escaped my lips as I took it all in. It's like looking into a mirror. Both of our bodies were riddled with innumerable scars. The exact number and shape were different, proof that we'd grown up in different environments. I didn't care about the small details. To me, his body was just the same as mine. We were both scarred on the inside far more than the outside, and for some reason it made his body and his scars all the more precious to me. I reached out and gently trailed a finger over the scar on his arm. The instant I touched him, he flinched faintly. Oh, girl. Exhaling loudly, I pulled him toward me head first. and I pressed my lips to his. Ooh, I said show. I wasn't sure why I did it. My body just sort of moved on autopilot. Touching his scars made me want to touch him more and more until I could scarcely stand it. He stood there unresisting. Hot water dripped down our faces, slid into our lips, and down our chins. I pulled away and exhaled. This time he leaned in after me. Lightly he nibbled my lips. Somehow I could feel his hesitation. Toward me and toward himself. I hardened my lips and kissed him back deeply, accepting him in all his uncertainty. Lightly nipped at his lower lip, then slid my tongue into his mouth, which he returned in kind. Our tongues teased each other and I felt a numbing sensation spread throughout my body. Goosebumps pricked up and my heart raced. Woo-hoo! Woo! He gently caressed the back of my head, supporting me. The angle of our kiss deepened further, the sound of our tongues inaudible under the drone of the shower. He swirled his tongue inside my mouth, devouring it all. I had a cut on the inside of my mouth from the gate, and every time he brushed it, a tiny prick of pain shot through me. But it felt good. Before I knew it, I was teasing his tongue, begging for more. Consumed by the passionate kiss, I squirmed in his arms, then I felt something against my thigh. Oh boy. Naturally, I quickly realized what it was. I was aroused by my kiss, and even if it was merely a biological reaction, it still gave me a thrill. I was quickly growing an erection on my own. He grunted, pulled away, and looked at me. His gaze was feverish yet reproachful at the same time. The look in his eyes seemed to ask, "Are you sure you want to cross this line?" And once again, it wasn't just directed at me, but at himself too. Personally, I didn't see the harm in it. Quite the opposite. I wanted to know more about him. I wanted to explore his body. I reached out and touched one of the scars that ran across his chest, then I kissed it. Okay. He grabbed me by the shoulders and pushed me back. I thought maybe he was rejecting me, but then he kissed me roughly. His tongue ravaged me hard this time and I moaned. Then he pulled away and whispered in my ear, His strained voice sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to make a mess of him. I buried my face in his shoulder. Whoa. From there, we stumbled our way to the bed, refusing to pull our mouths apart for even a single moment. Neither of us had toweled off, and our wet bodies quickly dampened the linen. Oof, oh boy. That was an emotional roller coaster. Okay. So again, I'll make this a bit short. So in the next part, we're gonna finish up the game. I'm gonna do the bad endings first. So we're gonna do Taku's bad end, Rei's bad end, and then Fujieda's bad end. And then or technically it has a different title. And then we will finish off the game with the good ending for the true route, the final chapter. Guys, we're almost there. Oh gosh, sorry. Like this last bit, oh, I knew I was gonna get like this where I'm just like emotional, so it's like I don't talk a lot. So I hope that's okay. I'll try to make it up in the chatting section, our after chatting section. Oh gosh, yeah, just like the hero he is, Fujieda shows up just in the nick of time every time, and oh my god, it's like it again. It's so funny because you expect Taku and Rei to be like to have more romantic themes going on, but like Madarame, like he may not come off as romantic, but whenever the intimate scenes come up, it's like he's meant to be perceived as romantic. Like we're supposed to perceive his like CGs as romantic because again, like I mentioned, he and Toa are very compatible in a certain way. And Fujieda and Toa are both compatible and opposites attract. But I think that's what makes Fujieda and Toa like an extremely strong pairing, because they both have very severe weaknesses and strengths, and they're both so good. But yeah, all right. I am dead tired. I decided that I was gonna go baby, and we were gonna finish up Slow Damage at the speed of light. Oh goodness, wow. It's this game has been such a journey. I'm both sad and excited to finally finish it soon, probably in the next day or so I can do it. But I'm gonna miss these guys. I'm gonna miss these guys a lot. They're so great. But yeah, so as my usual ad goes, please don't forget to check out You Can Smooch Tho, my Boys Love podcast about all things boys love and other related items, available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, coming soon to YouTube podcasts. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay well. Please continue to love Slow Damage and all our cute boys. Thank you so much, as always, for joining, and I'll see you guys next time. So goodbye, bye bye, and good night, night night.